We're freedomizers. Freedomize freedom.
It's feline fury time.
Hello, Freedomizers and friends. This is TigerLily, your show host for the next hour on Freedomizer Radio. This is TigerLily's Freedom Roar. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're joining me live, today is the 4th of January, lucky 2013. If you want to call in on the radio show live, the number is 347-324-3704. So happy New Year, everybody. TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, or TAIF, thank Allah it's Friday, or TJIF, thank Jehovah's Witnesses that it's Friday. But it is Friday, and it is Lucky 13. It is the first Friday, the first show for me for 2013, and I'm expecting to get a whole lot more activity going on this radio channel, Freedomizer Radio. I've been at this for a year, minus 4 months when I had like a psychological meltdown, but I feel stronger every time somebody has when you get sick, you build immunities. It's the same way when you feel a little bit depressed and down in the dumps and what have you. You're only going to get better and stronger, and that's how I feel. I feel ultra strong these days. I have an action-packed first show. I'm going to talk about the winners of the 3rd Annual Liberty Inspiration Award. The person that I nominated actually won. I'm so excited. You have no idea. I'm also going to talk about the fact that I had 2 helmet trials scheduled on the same day, one in Nevada and one about 80 miles apart away in another part of Nevada called Bunkerville, Nevada. I'm going to tell you how that went. And this was on Wednesday. And then the day after that, on Thursday, yesterday, my friend David Stilwell had another hearing related to an obstruction case that's already been completely decided that he was not guilty, and that was just so exciting to watch what he did. It was so, wait till I tell you what he told the judge. I mean, I feared for him, for heaven's sakes. I was so afraid that he was going to be in contempt of court, because these damn judges, I know a lady, when I went to jail for 24 hours, actually it was a holding tank, there was a 5-month pregnant lady there who told me that she was put in jail because of a judge that didn't like her because she rolled her eyes at him. So that is too much damn power to have in a country that you're supposed to be free. Give me a break. We're not free. Let's get it together, people. Let's do a little critical thinking together and recognize that we are not in the land of the free, home of the brave. There are a few brave people, but it ain't the people that are in costume in any way, stretch, or imagination. So I'm going to talk about my 2 helmet trials. I'm going to talk about my friend's hearing. And I went to bed last night feeling optimistic for the first time in a long, 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 long time. Optimistic for future, optimistic for liberty. And I think it's because the last thing I watched on TV, and I know I'm not supposed to be watching the news because that's one of the things I'm trying to do better. I've gotten off of all of my Zoloft that I was taking to keep from killing doctors. When I was a nurse, I used to be on 100 milligrams of Zoloft. So I'm off of all of that. I still take a tiny bit of Xanax. I was taking between 6 and 8 milligrams of Xanax a day just to go to sleep. That's how wound up I was. So now I'm off of almost all of the Xanax. I'm down to 1 milligram, sometimes half of a milligram. So I'm really proud of myself for that. And one of the things that I know that I'm not supposed to do is watch the news right before going to sleep. But I couldn't help myself. I watched John Stossel's Freedom 2.0. And I'll tell you what, he's the next person who's going to get kicked off of cable news. And the reason I think that he's going to get kicked off is because he is doing some very controversial stuff. And when I say the next person, the other person who got kicked off was our beloved Judge Napolitano. He's off. And I guess I'm sure he's not killed, but he's, as far as, I don't mean literally killed, but I mean, he's still probably getting the word out. I really haven't done a whole lot of research on him, but I know he was doing some very controversial exposing. And because of that, I'm sure, is the reason why he got fired. or he's no, I don't know if he got fired or maybe they didn't renew his contract or whatever they do. But the thing is, there are freedom fighters out there, and one of them is John Stossel, and he had an incredible show last night, and it's called Freedom 2.0, and he's on the Fox News network, the Business Network. So check him out, look him up, and see if you can see it, because his stuff was just absolutely eye-opening. Let me see. Let me try to upload my thingamajigger here. Also, I'm going to talk about the latest in the Journal. Remember the Journal who published the names and the addresses of the gun owners? Oh my gosh, there was an interesting development on that, and probably everybody knows I've kind of been out of the loop for the last couple of days because I was busy with my 2 trials and then going to my friends and doing a lot of driving. But on NRP, I was listening on my way home. The latest on this gun controversy, the gun rights, rights versus gun control. And I am going to also, towards the end of the show, feature the story. I promised on my Facebook page that I was going to feature a story of a lady who ended up going to jail because of a stupid cop and a stupid neighbor, and she's suing both, and I am delighted as hell that she's doing that, and I can't wait to share my thoughts about that because we need to change our whole mindset of how we think about cops. But before I get into my show, I want to talk a little bit about last week. There was a brave man by the name of John. He gave his whole name and everything on my radio show. And he is exposing the city of San Antonio. And San Antonio is close to my old stomping grounds. I raised my children in Kerrville, Texas. So San Antonio is about 65 miles northwest of Kerrville, Texas. And in San Antonio, this tyranny is all over the country. It's everywhere. Every state has it. Any place where you have a lot of population, it's a lot worse. You've got these horrific DUI checkpoints and so on and so forth. And mainstream media fails to report some of the most important stuff. And why is that? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that and a lot of theories around that, but I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just going to go right into what John emailed me or he put on Facebook. He said, because I podcasted my last show, and if you do like a Google search on TL Roar, ROAR, that's short for TigerLily Roar podcast, you can probably find my podcast channel, and in that I downloaded my the kind of an archive because I think that's just the quickest way to do it, and on that, I included what John had to say, and this is what John said to me in a Facebook group. He said, I discussed the murder of Pierre Abernathy by a gang of San Antonio, Texas cops on his mama's front lawn. The 2 unconstitutional criminal trespass warnings issued to silence whistleblowers / activists, and the quote-unquote mental health raid by armed SAPD cops on the night of July 4th, and the ongoing criminal conspiracy by San Antonio Police Department Police Chief William McManus. Looks like Anus, but McManus. That's a good name for him, Police Chief Anus. Anyways, and others to hide 3 decades of fraud / theft / corruption inside San Antonio, Texas. And then he said, thank you, Lily, for the opportunity to speak on your show. So hold on a second. Honey, if you would be so kind to find out, make sure that I'm actually on the air because I'm not on Skype or anything, so just see what you can do for me. So he said, thank you, Lily, for the opportunity to speak on your show. Well, I want to thank you, John, for having the courage to go on the record and to go public about what is going on in San Antonio. He actually went to the city council there in San Antonio, as he explained on my show, to expose what is going on, and he has a criminal trespass against him for him not to go into the city council to speak because, and I said, well, why in the heck, how can they trespass you? I mean, that's public property. How can anybody do that? And he said that it's because he has been asking for so many public information requests that the excuse that the cops used is that he's harassing the bureaucrats. How the hell do you harass bureaucrats by asking stuff that you have a right to ask for, information? And he knows exactly the kind of questions to ask, and it's frustrating them, and they don't, these cockroaches like to fester in the dark. And when anybody tries to shine a light on their crimes, they will shut them down. They will do anything they can, even if it's violating the law, because they are above the law. They think they're above the law, and as long as we allow them to do crimes in the dark, they will continue to fester and continue to abuse we the so-called people. I call us we the sheeple is what we are. We tend to be. So enough of that for now. I want to congratulate Stefan Molyneux and Antonio Buehler. They were two of the 5 winners of the 3rd Annual Liberty Inspiration Award. Let me tell you about this award. This award, and I'll post all of my sources on the next podcast or on the next YouTube that I do, where I'm trying to chronicle all of my work so that it gets out there and people can share it. So about the award, this is an award that will be given, it says, according to the main blog that has this award, it'll be given yearly to 5 people who showed positive effort and energy throughout the year in spreading the message of liberty. They did not have to run for office, but they did have to inspire others to step up or do something that helped to bring people together or enlighten others by growing the liberty movement in some manner, by taking on a leadership role of some sort, or by creating a new platform for inspiration, whether it be media, news, music, or just speaking out in some way that may have brought about positive change. So when I looked at, one of the things I do almost daily is, my favorite freedom fighter is a man, he's a philosopher by the name of Stefan Molyneux, and he's Canadian, and he's got 13 million views on his YouTube channel alone. He is the host for freedomainradio.com, and he won the 2012 Liberty Inspiration Award. He's the one that I nominated, and so he won, followed by Ron Paul, Tom Woods, and Antonio Buehler. How exciting is that, you guys? Not only have I been airing a lot of Stefan Molyneux's work on my radio show, but I had the privilege, and also Stefan Molyneux has been a guest on Freedomizer Radio. He was a guest for Proof Negative. That was exciting, and Proof got to meet him in Las Vegas at the Liberty function that they had there in Las Vegas. I was really bummed out that I was scheduled to be there, but I didn't make it. So that was my opportunity to meet him, and I'm hoping there'll be other opportunities to meet this fantastic philosopher. I think he's going to go down in history as much greater than even Socrates. He breaks it down to what is virtue, what is right, what is wrong. And he says, if people call him, we have all these labels. Some people label him as an anarchist because he believes in no laws. And really, does no laws mean no rules? No. No laws means no government. We can have rules. Look at eBay. eBay isn't run by the government. eBay is a privately run organization. eBay thrives because people, it's a word of mouth thing, and it's an internet thing, and it's something that people can actually rate the sellers who are selling things. So, Stefan Molyneux, he really breaks it down, and he's got his intellect is something that is just to be really it's inspirational, and one common theme I have seen, every activist that I have ever known that I've researched and I've looked on, every single one of them, they all have some kind of Stefan Molyneux deprogramming in their philosophies, in their own philosophies. Stefan is the one who has had the most influence in my own awareness of what it is to be free. The fact that we as human beings, as a species, need to just not violate the two fundamental principles that transcend everything. It transcends color, it transcends creed, religion, it transcends everything. No matter what religion, anything you are, we can all agree that the initiation of force is not good, or it is immoral, and that respect for property rights is important. Those are the two things, the two philosophical principles. And he wrote a book called Universally Preferable Behaviors, and all of his work is free. You can download it online. He lives by donations, basically, and he's got such a following. I donate monthly to him just because, and it's a nominal amount. And let me tell you, the amount that I give to him is so puny compared to the work that he has done and how it has impacted my life. It's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of activists. There's people like my best friend in the world, besides my husband, obviously, is David Stilwell, founder of Guerrilla Lawfare. It's through him that I was first awakened, and then it's through people like Rogue, he goes by Rogue. He is a member of Bikers of Lesser Tolerance. He was one of the first people, or perhaps the first person to get the helmet law repealed back in the 60s, in the late 60s, early 70s, when the feds got into everybody's business and said, if you're going to ride a motorcycle on a highway in the United States, you have to wear a helmet. So Rogue was the person who had the balls to get in there in the legislative session and talk to the congressmen and say, what you guys are doing is blackmail. It's absolutely deplorable. He appealed to their sense of morality and got the helmet bondage lifted from the state where he lived at the time, which was in Connecticut, and that was the first state to have a complete repeal of the helmet laws. And currently there are some kind of helmet choice in 2/3 of the states in the United States. In Nevada, California, and the left coast, all of them are still helmet bondage states, and those are an abomination in my view. We motorcyclists should have the freedom to decide whether or not they want to wear a helmet, and that's what started me on this journey. And I'll tell you what, when I started to research and study Stefan Molyneux's teachings, I got severely depressed. It was like you just took away. I felt like a kid who just got told that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Are you kidding me, Steph? Are you kidding me? How in the hell can you be so happy? How in the hell can you rip off my reality? Just take it away from me and tell me that there's no such thing as the United States. There's no such thing as government. There's no such thing as all of these things that I was holding near and dear. And I'll tell you, the very first person that got me to think about rights, about us not having rights, that rights are a figment of our imagination. It was actually the comedian George Carlin. And I remember the first time I heard him say that, he says, rights, these activists, they crack me up. Rights, what do they think? They got rights? We don't have rights. And it really pissed me off because I'm thinking, there's been a lot of bloodshed to secure these rights that we have. So that rocked my world, and it pissed me off. And when I started sharing this information to some of my constitutional friends, they got pissed off at George Carlin and then pissed off at me that how I could be so easily indoctrinated to believe that we don't have rights. What is this? Of course we have rights. The Constitution, the Founding Fathers, the flag, the patriotism, the Star-Spangled Banner. It's all a lie, ladies and gentlemen. The United States is nothing but a geographical space in land that somebody decided to label and give it a name. It's as fictitious as a forest. There's no such thing as a forest. there is such a thing as a tree. So when you combine and put a bunch of trees together, somebody decided to label this geographical space of land as a forest. But that is a figment of our imagination. So anywho, I want to let me go into my thingamajigger, into my studio, and I want to air what I had said about Stefan Molyneux. And this is 4 minutes. If you want to call in, the number is 347-324-3704. Feel free to call in, and I'll try to get you in towards the end of my show. Listen to what Stefan Molyneux had to say about guns and gun laws. And this is just, he's got about 1,000 down vids on his YouTube, and you can find his YouTube if you go to youtube.com/Stefbot, STEFBOT, and you can see all of his stuff. So without further ado, listen to this.
I believe in the right to bear arms, as it gives people the ability to fight off oppressive governments and intruders, etc. However, when people say more guns equals more deaths, it gets me thinking, call that weak-mindedness or whatever, and I question whether people in a free society can be trusted with weapons. Could you give me some comments on that or give me a video link? Well, there's tons of stuff about it. But again, you just want to work with first principles if you really want to make sure that you're not arguing from effect. Arguing from effect or consequentialism or utilitarianism or pragmatism is always a disaster. It's always saying that an idea, the value or truth of an idea can be judged by its effects is not it's not valid. That's not what philosophy is first principles, right? It's like saying that Einsteinian physics is wrong because it led to atomic weapons. No, Einsteinian physics is right or wrong regardless of the consequences of that. And so you don't have the right to bear arms because of, X, Y, and Z consequence, the fighting off oppressive governments, which doesn't really work anyway. But no, you don't have the right to bear arms because of that. You have the right to bear arms because it's philosophically contradictory to oppose it, right? Because, okay, let's say that people do not have the right to bear arms, okay? So who's going to stop them from bearing arms? Well, people with arms, okay? So some people must have the right to bear arms in order to stop other people from who don't have the right to bear arms. Well, you've got then all of these are penguins except for these 5 who are the opposite of penguins. Nobody has the right to bear arms except for these guys in a blue costume who must have bear arms to stop everyone else from bearing arms. People either have the right or don't have the right to bear arms. And not having the right to bear arms creates insurmountable logical contradictions. And therefore it's false. Logical contradictions equals falsehood. Logical contradictions equals falsehood. That's all you need to think about. And so anybody who says that, okay, so people in a free society, can they be trusted with weapons? If you say yes, then you have a free society. And if you say no, they can't be trusted with weapons, then obviously you can't have a government. Because you have to trust people with weapons who call themselves the government. And if people can't be trusted with weapons, then you can't have a government. I mean, this is the old fundamental thing. And people will always try and create this double think, this artificial divide in your mind. It's very dangerous, most dangerous thing there is. And they will say, we need a government to protect us from evil people. But if there are evil people in the world, and I have no doubt that there are, where's the first place they're going to go? It's to the government. I mean, if you create an agency with the monopoly of force, it's going to attract evil people like flies to shit. And you do not solve the problem of evil by giving it a monopoly. I mean, you may solve the problem of certain conflicts. But, I mean, that's it's the Randall Patrick McMurphy argument, right? That you can solve the problem of rebellion with a frontal lobotomy. You can solve the problem of a migraine with a guillotine. You can't solve the problem of evil by creating an agency with a monopoly on evil, which attracts all the evil people. It's like, we have a problem with organized crime, so let's create one big organized crime monopoly and give it domination with nuclear weapons over the whole area. You've not solved the problem. You've just fed the cancer to the point where life becomes unsustainable. I guess a guy who's died doesn't have any problem with cancer, but it's not like you've had a cure. So that's really, really important. And people will always say, well, because of these bad people, because of these bad consequences, we must have a government. But that's creating a category of people which is supposed to have the exact opposite categories or characterizations of those that you've just described. Sorry, that's a bad way of putting it. So if I say, well, there's lots of evil people in the world who will take your stuff, so we need a government to protect us from them, well, how does the government pay for this protection by taking your stuff. You haven't solved the problem. You understand? The use of government as an imaginary solution for social problems is worse, really, but it's on the same intellectual level as the use of God to solve problems in physics and biology. Saying, well, God did it. There's no answer. It actually prevents answers because it's the pretend answer. When you have a pretend answer, when you think you have an answer, you stop looking for answers. And government is a way of pretending you have an answer when, in fact, you're just making the problems worse. It's, it's the old thing. It's morphine for a toothache. Hey, my tooth feels better, but the rot continues deeper. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much. Donations at freedomainradio.com/donate. I'll talk to you soon.
And so that was our winner, the winner of that prestigious award. And I'm so glad that he won. I have to go to commercial break, you guys, but when I get back, I'm going to tell you about how it went on my trials, about my friend David's trial, and a couple of other things. And at the very end, I want to share about a 5-minute clip on the other winner who happened to have been on my radio show on December the 7th, and his name is Antonio Buehler. I recognized him as a powerhouse when I first heard about him, and let me tell you, he absolutely deserves this award. So I'll be back in about 60 seconds.
Freedomizer Radio, where freedomizers freedomize freedom.
Welcome back. This is TigerLily. You're listening to TigerLily's Freedom Roar on Freedomizer Radio. If you're listening live, it is the 4th of January, 2013. Thank God it's Friday. It is the first Friday of 2013, and this is my first 2013 radio show, and I'm so excited about that. And I've been doing this for about a year, and let me just keep on going with my show, you guys, because I got a lot of information I still want to share. David Stilwell. Oh, my gosh. David Stilwell, on his birthday about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, it was Super Bowl Sunday, he went to a DUI checkpoint, and he loves these DUI checkpoints there in Las Vegas because he holds these cops accountable, and he makes them follow their own laws, or tries to. And he and his colleague, a personal friend of mine as well named Tim Farrell, they went together and they go together and they videotape and they live stream and they do stuff to absolutely hold these guys accountable, because what they do is just an abomination to liberty. And if you've ever been to a DUI checkpoint, it really is something to behold. It's something like out of a Nazi war camp. And I remember about 4 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I went to France with a girlfriend of mine, and they were just stopping people. The cops there were stopping people willy-nilly just to blow into a breathalyzer to make sure that they weren't drunk. And I remember my girlfriend, Jennifer, she said, oh, no, this would never be tolerated in America. Little did she know, it was being tolerated, it is being tolerated, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better, in my opinion. So David Stilwell went to this DUI checkpoint on two Super Bowl Sundays ago. It happened to have been his birthday. It was the 8th of January, I believe. And he decided to he rolled down his window about, his window was broken, but he never made a deal about that. So he rolled it down. He says, TigerLily, it was down enough to, I could have gotten a beer can through it. I mean, that's how he gives his descriptions. He's a very colorful little guy. And so the cop said, it was a female cop, NHP, Nevada Highway Patrol, and she said, roll your window all the way down. And he said, why? I can hear you just fine. She immediately took out her stun gun, and she says, get out of the truck, you're under arrest. Oh, my God. So months and months later, and 5 or 6 hearings later, he was found guilty. He was found guilty by this judge, a female judge, who he lovingly refers to as the noodle lady because she's Asian. And she's, oh, my God, what a bitch she is. She's scary. And she went to she found him guilty, and she said, and I was there when she found him guilty, and she said, Mr. Stilwell, I understand that we all have rights, and we live in the greatest country on earth. Yeah, bitch, it's the greatest one to you because you don't have to do a damn thing. You sponge as a parasite off of us, the taxpayers, and you sit 4 feet above everybody else and just give orders, and if somebody rolls their eyes, you have the power to make these guys in costumes and guns put that person in jail. Now, how is that for justice in America? Give me a break. So she says, Mr. Stilwell, yeah, I understand that you think that we all have rights, but the reality is that the Constitution is organic. Oh, my God, the Constitution is organic. So she said, it's not all about you, Mr. Stilwell, and there's a reason for these DUI checkpoints, and they're to keep our community safe. Well, bitch, doesn't she know that cops can get 4 times more drunks by doing it the old-fashioned way, patrolling, as opposed to doing these stupid checkpoints where people have to wait sometimes for an hour to get through these checkpoints? And even ambulances can't get through them. These are not safety things. These are not about safety. They're all about domination and control. It's a Gestapo bullcrap stuff. So, anyways, he appealed, and she very, very arrogantly told David Stilwell, who was representing himself, by the way. They think that they can get away with a lot more, and they tend to if you're representing yourself. And he was smart not to get a lawyer, because lawyers are all in cahoots. They're all in bed with these judges and with the prosecutors and everything. It's just a bunch of incestuous blank sucking, that's going on. It's an abomination. Oh, my God. So she arrogantly tells him, if you're welcome to appeal me, my decision. And, well, that's exactly what Mr. Stilwell did. She appealed him. I don't know how much money it cost, like maybe $24, and she appealed the decision to district court. And it was remanded back. He was found not guilty based on a technicality, because the prosecutor was arrogantly also not giving him all of his discovery. So it was remanded back for fees and costs. So he went to the hearing yesterday, and she's like looking at him very confused. Mr. Stilwell, I don't see that you owe anything. And he says something to the effect, no, I'm here because I'm here to collect my money. And and she says, oh, I see that, it was overturned. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, she did not like that. And just for his case, there was a lady there who had been pulled over. I don't know when she was pulled over, and her charge, oh my God, she was charged because she was driving on a suspended license, and her registration had been expired or something. So she was given like a fine, and evidently she couldn't pay the fine, and she was supposed to do some community service or something. This lady, you could tell she's a poor lady, and she had a public prosecutor there, and she goes up in front of the noodle lady, and she says, and the noodle lady says, I don't know what else to do with you. You have failed to follow my orders. And I guess all there's left to do is to, you're going to serve 90 days in jail. And the lady busted out crying and everything. And the bailiff was right there. He already knew what was going to happen. He's there with his hands behind his back holding the handcuffs. And so he handcuffed her and made her sit down to the side. And while they were waiting for somebody to take her to across the street, that's when David was being heard, and she said, well, so what is it that you're wanting, Mr. Stilwell? And he says, well, I've got my fees and costs, and according to NRS 171, blah, 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 he's got all this statutes memorized. He says, you have, I need over $1,000, like $1,100. And she says, oh, well, this is highly irregular. I can understand giving you back your fine, but I don't see why. This is highly unusual. No, you're not going to get anything more than your fine. Well, see, in order for David to appeal, he had to pay, I think, $24. He wants that back. And also, he was forced to have to pay for the transcript of the original hearing, which was over $200. So he says those are his costs. That's what he's wanting back. And she says, oh, no, it's not going to happen. And then he says, Your Honor, to this day, there have been 3 judges, I think it was 3 judges, who have ordered the prosecution to give me my discovery, and to this day, I still do not have my discovery. And the prosecutor, little dumb flipper man, he says, Your Honor, because she's kind of giving him the skunk eye, like, my judgment was overturned because you didn't get discovery. So he's like, oh, ma'am, I'm going to double check and triple check and blah, blah, blah. So this was the perfect time. David Stilwell said to the judge, well, Your Honor, I have, when I get an order from a judge, if I don't obey that order, I'll end up in a onesie and with handcuffs and have to go walk across the street and spend some time in jail. But here, a number of judges have ordered this prosecutor to give me discovery, and he has yet to do that. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, that's so scary, because the bitch, she could have said contempt of court. But you know what? Maybe the old broad doesn't even know what a onesie is. A onesie, in case you don't know, it's a loose-fitting one-piece leisure garment for adults covering the torso and legs. It's also the term used for, the little tiny T-shirts, like pajamas that are used for children. And he said onesie. Now, David is he used to be, and he still is, a single dad, but, he raised children from little, and he knows about onesies and stuff. Well, this old battle axe, she probably doesn't know what the heck a onesie is, So maybe that kind of went over her head. So that was super, super scary, in my opinion. I found also, so let me go back a little bit and just tell you, I've discovered this guy by the name of Marc Stevens. Evidently, he's been around for quite some time. I'm surprised that I didn't know about him before, but Marc Stevens is an activist. He's got his awakening moment. I think it was in the late 90s in New York when he got fired, and he used he tried to appeal it using the union, and he was a union person and all of that. He's had a whole awakening, and he knows Stefan Molyneux and all of that very well. And he's got this whole thing where he calls, he's not a lawyer, but he'll call prosecutors on behalf of his so-called clients, because you're not supposed to practice law if you don't have a license, right? That's the way to keep us down, That's the way to keep the power to the lawyers and to the establishment, So, but he goes and he really does a great job of annoying and frustrating prosecutors so much that they'll dismiss a case just because they don't want to deal with him. Because the questions he asks are basically, so what evidence do you have that the code and the law is applicable to my client? And it's like, he was in the prosecutors. They'll say, well, because he was on our territory, on our property, on our state, on our jurisdiction. Okay, but that you see that circular. What evidence do you have? And it's really fascinating. I tried to use a couple of those things. I got his book. It's called Adventures in Legal Land. Highly recommended for anybody. What he does is he exposes the farceness. He kind of builds off of what Stefan Molyneux says, that there is no such thing as government, to actually expose how that really, to give clear examples of how that is a fact, how it's a fact that there is no such thing as government except for in our mind, And so when I was practicing, I did a little bit of, I was sharing on his, he's got this Skype group, Marc Stevens, I'm sorry, and you can go to his website is marcstevens.net, and on Skype he's got the No State Project, and there's like a couple of hundred people on there, and at any given time you can post a question in there, and people can brainstorm ideas on how to deal with a ticket or the IRS or whatever bureaucratic bull is going on in your life at the time. So I was telling I was sharing that I was going to be going to court. I think this was Monday or Tuesday, and my court was going to be Wednesday. It was Wednesday. And one guy said, well, if here's a couple of questions to the judge, but he says, and now if you really want to piss the judge off, I got another set of questions. So, of course, I got curious. I said, send me those questions. So here it is, and I'm sorry that I didn't get the name of the person. I'll try to make a point of it when I put this broadcast down on YouTube. I'll make a point of finding out who that was and give him credit for it. But he says, here's a couple of questions to piss off the judge. Are you taking any psychotropic drugs such as Paxil or Zoloft? Are you representing me? Are you a Freemason? Or are you affiliated with the Illuminati? What right do you have to push your religion off on me? Is this court inquisitional or adversarial? And then he goes, while the judge is screaming at you, say this. Have you considered anger management classes? How can you call me crazy when you're a man wearing a black dress? Of course, if it's a female judge, you say this. How can you call me crazy when you're a woman wearing a man's black dress? I'm confused. And then he goes on, if you are asked to understand if you understand the charges, just say no, and then let them explain them to you along with any facts. And then he says, make sure you know the nature and cause of the action against you. They may then suggest you get an attorney. Then you can say that they speak in the same gibberish that you do. If I wanted a psycho to represent me, I would have tried to hire someone on rehab. Please walk me through every element of this alleged heinous crime and disclose all of the facts that these codes apply to me. And then he ends it with this, you should be able to endear yourself to every govtard on the planet. And then he says, disclaimer, this is not legal advice, it's better. I loved that. That was so funny. So let me move on along and just tell you a little bit about my trials. I had a trial in Las Vegas. It was, and if you want to call in, I have a couple of people listening, but I don't see their hands up. Press 1 if you want to be part of the show. The number is 347-324-3704. Let me keep going. I had the 2 trials, and it was very stressful to me, and I'll tell you what, I mean, it was, I wanted to kill myself. Oh, my God. It's like, how am I going to go to 2 trials, 80 miles apart, 4 hours apart? You know, the 2 trials are 4 hours apart, and how am I going to get to them? And I was just so afraid that I was going to, if I don't show up in time, there's going to be an arrest warrant. And I'm thinking, I ain't going. I got a gun. I'm going to use it. If somebody shows up at my door and says, there's a warrant for your arrest, I'm ready to blow somebody off because I am not going to go to jail again if I can possibly avoid it. And if I happen not to have a gun at the time because I'm in a place where I'm stripped of my rights to bear arms, like inside of a courthouse or something, I'm going to do some scratching, biting, spitting, whatever I have to do. I am going to give my master a black eye before he throws me into that oven. That's just the reality of how I feel about these things. So I go to Las Vegas, and I'm really scared to death of this judge. And she kind of reminds me of my mom. She's an attractive lady. She's not that old. My husband just looked her up, and she's only 56 years old. And come to find out, oh my God, I was so lucky. She happens to be a motorcycle rider herself. Now, the crime that I committed was allegedly not wearing a helmet. Now, I was wearing headgear, but my headgear is controversial, and it's so controversial I usually wear a little helmet with a tiara on it, but I can't get a ticket anymore wearing that because all the cops know that, this is the crazy person who's, just going to put me on YouTube and shame me. So what I did is I kicked it up a notch, so I wore my little helmet without the tiara, and I put a little headgear over it, So I had my headgear on, and so the cop testified that I was wearing a bandana, and I said, well, did you touch my head to see if there was anything hard in there? And he said, no, I didn't. And so then the judge said, I can see, first of all, she was saying kind of like that, my ticket was $200. So in the pretrial, she tried to negotiate with me, to $50 and no points, no nothing, and it's just put it behind you. because it says here you weren't wearing a helmet. And I said, well, Your Honor, I'm not guilty, and I want a trial. And she says, well, fine, but you do realize that you can be fined up to $1,000. I'm like, well, okay, let the chips fall where they may. I knew that she was just, it was kind of a bluff, but they do have that power. She could have exercised some of her own discretion and just charged me $1,000, and I really didn't want that. I knew for sure I wasn't going to go to jail. But the $1,000, ouch, that really would have hurt. So anyways, the judge says, this isn't the place, to try to change the law. And I know my husband would sure love it if we had helmet choice in Nevada, but it's just never going to happen, yada, yada, yada. So anyways, I'll do a little podcast about that. That was a really cute hearing that I had. She was really enticed and curious about this, and I said a few things to her that really, kind of deprogrammed her a little bit, or at least got her to think differently. It's like, everybody thinks that helmets save lives. Well, there's a lot of people who have died wearing a helmet, so I kind of got her to think about that. And if they had not been wearing a helmet, maybe they would have seen something to avoid the accident or heard something, or maybe they wouldn't have been parachuted out of their motorcycle if it was heavy wind and a big helmet that got them to lose control of their bike. So it kind of got her to think a little bit. So now after the trial, oh, and by the way, she found me guilty, which was really a good thing because now I can appeal it if I choose to. I haven't decided if I'm going to or not. But she found me guilty, and guess how much she charged me? I expected $200 because that's what the normal fine would have been, plus court costs. She fined me $50. She actually asked her clerk, what's the least I could fine her? And she said $50, $52 or something. So I paid my $52, and now I'm thinking about whether or not I'm going to appeal. So as I'm walking out of the courthouse, and fortunately Dave was with me, and he's my witness, the cop came up to me. Now, I've had this cop on YouTube, and I kind of mocked him, and the cop said, I've been following your YouTubes, and a buddy of mine put a comment on your YouTube kind of sticking up for me, and you said, and you replied to his comment, and you said, I smell bacon. And so I laughed. I said, yeah, I did say that. That does sound like something I would say. So he took it in the good-naturedly, and I was lucky that way because some cops, they are all about the power trip. And I even told the judge, this cop was really one of the best ones that I've had. In fact, the nicest one I had was a game warden, but I won't even go into that because I have more stuff that I have to cover. And gosh, I don't think I'm going to be able to have time to cover everything. So anywho, I went to the Bunkerville one. I got there and I had been begging Bunkerville, the judge, to continue my trial. And at the very last, at the 11th hour, nobody, even the prosecutor, she said, well, I'm not going to contest your continuance request. And then I said, okay, but are you stipulating to it? Are you going to, agree with it? Well, I couldn't get an answer from her. So I wouldn't have put it past these bureaucrats to have put a warrant out for my arrest. So I had plan B. My husband was going to be, covering for me. He got there in time. But I got there with 30 minutes to spare. I was going 90 miles an hour, man. On I-15, my ass was going to get there. I'm looking for cops, and I'm making sure that, I can get there in time. And I'm splitting lanes, and I'm just going crazy. I want to get there. I don't want. I do know. So, anyways, I show up, and the judge says, "Oh, I've continued it." I said, "Oh, no fair. I'm here. I'm ready for trial. I'm ready to play ball." That prosecutor, blah blah blah. So I'll do another podcast on that to give you the details on that. In the meantime, right now, let me see, because I'm down to 7 minutes. Oh my God, how fast it's gone. I want to talk about Stossel, a little bit of Stossel, and he covered this thing called Bitcoins. Do a Google search on Bitcoins, B-I-T and then C-O-I-N-S. It is the new currency, and oh my gosh, Chuck Schumer is having a cow over this because it's kind of doing what PayPal was supposed to do, but even better, because PayPal is a way to kind of circumvent having to have any, to track your stuff so that the government can't get to it that easily. But PayPal just has one big server, so the government can still, catch you. Now, what Bitcoin does, it's got Bitcoin, I'm sorry. Bitcoin it's got servers all over the world. So you can be anywhere in the world and you can buy stuff using Bitcoins. So here's a very short little thing. It's about a minute. So here.
What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the first decentralized digital currency. Bitcoins are digital coins you can send through the internet. Compared to other alternatives, Bitcoins have a number of advantages. Bitcoins are transferred directly from person to person via the net without going through a bank or clearinghouse. This means that the fees are much lower, you can use them in every country, your account cannot be frozen, and there are no prerequisites or arbitrary limits. Let's look at how it works. Bitcoins are generated all over the internet by anybody running a free application called a Bitcoin miner. Mining requires a certain amount of work for each block of coins. This amount is automatically adjusted by the network such that Bitcoins are always created at a predictable and limited rate. Your Bitcoins are stored in your digital wallet, which might look familiar if you use online banking. When you transfer Bitcoins, an electronic signature is added. After a few minutes, the transaction is verified by a miner and permanently and anonymously stored in the network. The Bitcoin software is completely open source, and anybody can review the code. Bitcoin is changing finance the same way the web changed publishing. When everyone has access to a global market, great ideas flourish. Let's look at some examples of how Bitcoins are already used today. You can purchase video games, gifts, books, servers, and alpaca socks. Several currency exchanges exist where you can trade your Bitcoins for dollars, euros, and more. Bitcoins are a great way for small businesses and freelancers to get noticed. It doesn't cost anything to start accepting them, there are no chargebacks or fees, and you'll get additional business from the Bitcoin economy. For your first Bitcoins and more information, visit weusecoins.com.
Wow, I'm so close to the end of my show, and I have so much that I haven't gotten to. Chuck Schumer is an anti-big time of this. He says people are getting illegal stuff, and yes, they are. They're getting marijuana, they're getting drugs, they're getting guns, they're getting LSD. Up yours, Schumer. And his main thing is it's not revenue. It's not stuff that the government can tax. Boo-hoo-hoo, you little parasite sponge living off of people's coerced money. You know, that's what taxation is. It's theft. Theft of we, the productive people who actually work for a living. So anyways, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to cover with Stossel, but I've just absolutely run out of time. I do want to share with Chuck Schumer. This is a 15-second clip, and evidently there was a lot of stuff about the Republicans not wanting to pass the Hurricane Sandy thing, and it turns out the reason they didn't want to get this passed is because there was a bunch of pork on there, billions and billions and billions of dollars of pork to benefit the congressmen who were exploiting the hurricane victims to try to put some of our tax money in their pockets. Listen to Chuck Schumer.
And let me say this to all of the chattering class that so much focuses on those little tiny, yes, porky amendments. The American people really don't care.
Oh, yes, they do, you douchebag. Okay, I've got somebody on hold. I'm not going to be able to commit to everything that I said at the top of the show that I was going to be doing. I'm just going to have to pass this down or put it on a podcast and share it with everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I do have a caller, and caller area code 904. You've got just a minute or so. Welcome to TigerLily's Freedom Roar.
Well, hi. I'm calling from Jacksonville, Florida, but nonetheless, you can go into archive on this, I guess, now. I don't know how Blog Talk is working these days, but it used to be that archive.
Yes, you can.
Well, one thing about Bitcoins is they fluctuate according to the value. You know, they have a market, and they fluctuate in value. So it can be kind of scary depending on when you buy in, but I think it's a great idea.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, and I'm going to put you on mute because I got to run. But thank you for sharing from Jacksonville, Florida, because I don't know anything about Bitcoin. The very first time I ever heard about this was last night, just before going to bed. It was on the John Stossel show. So tune in. He's on Fox News, Business News, and I think he'll probably air this a couple of more times, I bet you. And it's fascinating. And the sky is the limit. There is so much that we could be doing, and the one thing that is getting in the way of the production of our evolution is government. Because and Stossel in his show, he says, somebody said that back in the 1970s, people said that we were going to be able to fly from place to place, like cars that fly, like the Jetsons. Well, I think the only reason we don't have is because government is in the way, and the congressmen aren't really the evil people. It's actually, they are evil, but the bottom line is these big corporations have these politicians in their hands. So what we have in America and throughout the world is called fascism. And once we can break away from that, I think we are going to experience a liberty and a happiness and just freedom that it's going to expand our life. I bet you we're going to be able to live 1,000 years pretty soon. So anyways, that's my show. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. TigerLily's Freedom Roar. Bye.